Good morning. Okay, so yesterday we spent a little bit of time talking about kind of basic care of animals. And so one of the major items that animals need is food. Okay, but we need to think about, well, one, what do we feed them? And really kind of thinking about, well, how do they use that food? So what I want you to do is on your piece of paper that's in front of you, so just a scratch piece of paper, it doesn't have to be in your notes. I want you to take a few moments and write down 2 of your favorite meals to eat. Okay, so 2 of your favorite meals to eat. Take about 30 seconds to do that. Okay, so what do you have? Moji, what do you have? What's one of yours that you've written down?
Rice and plantains.
Rice and plantains. Excellent. Katie, what do you have?
Steak, potatoes, and broccoli.
Okay, so a little bit more of a sophisticated meal. Excellent, excellent. Rochelle, what do you have?
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti. Okay, so a good classic, simple Italian dish. Excellent. Caitlin, what do you have?
Beans and rice.
Beans and rice? Okay, so thinking about that, what exactly do we know about those types of meals? What are they made from?
Animals.
Okay, so some of the things might be made from animals. So the steak that Katie would like to have probably came from an animal. Well, hopefully it came from an animal. But what do we know about maybe rice or the pasta for spaghetti or the tomato sauce? It's a plant. So what does that make humans?
Omnivores.
Omnivores. Excellent. Okay, and so we eat both plants and animals. If we think about your dog or your cat, since I know most of you have those at home, what type of food do they eat?
Mostly meat.
Mostly meat, which would make them carnivores. Okay, and so typically when we think about dogs and cats, do we know what type of digestive system they might have? A monogastric digestive system. And so then we can think about maybe a dairy cow or a goat or a sheep. And what do they typically eat? Moji?
Hay.
Okay, so hay or grass, so plant systems, and that would make them what?
Ruminants.
They would have a ruminant digestive system, and herbivores, okay? So today we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the first part of our central question for this week, which is really to look at the differences between a ruminant and a monogastric digestive system. Today specifically, the first objective that we're going to talk about really deals with the idea of identifying the 4 major compartments of the ruminant's stomach, okay? And so a ruminant, as we've talked about, are primarily herbivores. So they eat plant systems. So whether that is grass or hay, silage, corn, things along those lines that they're going to then eat and their body's going to need to slowly have to break down. We know from just different pieces of research that we've done about monogastrics that 60 to 75% of the actual food that is digested by an animal that is a ruminant is digested by microbes. Okay, and so there's little microbes and bacteria that form inside of the animal's stomach that actually begin to eat away and digest that food. One thing that's different about you and I, or cats and dogs and a ruminant, is that they only have bottom incisors. Okay, and so they don't have incisors on the top of their mouth. What is an incisor?
The sharp teeth, like
Okay.
they use to bite.
Yes, the front teeth that they have that they're going to bite with. Okay, and so how do they gather their food then?
With their tongue.
With their tongue or with their lips. Okay, and so they'll take that and they'll rip it out of the ground and then they'll begin to eat it. So today, as we look at this picture, in later days, we're going to talk more about the mouth, and we'll talk about the esophagus a little bit, and then we'll talk about the small intestine and the large intestine a little later on. But today we're really going to focus on the stomach and the four chambers of that stomach. So the first one is the rumen, and that's where the food originally comes when the animal eats it and pulls it off of the plant. They'll chew it slightly in their mouth, they'll swallow it, and it'll fall into the rumen. Once it gets into the rumen, what'll happen is any of the plant material will typically float on the top of the liquid that's already sitting in the rumen. And then the liquid and any type of foreign matter, so if they maybe eat a nail or a screw or something that they find on the ground, that they just pull in with either their tongue or their lips, they'll swallow, and that'll fall straight through the rumen. And it's not digested, it's actually just moved and it falls into the reticulum and it's collected there, which is the second part. What we know about the rumen, though, is that very small animals that are first born do not have a functioning rumen. As well as we know that once they do grow and they start to develop, the rumen is the largest component or chamber of the ruminant's stomach. And this is where, again, a lot of those microbes are going to be beginning to start and where that bacteria really forms. And so most of the digestion that's going to occur there is going to be anaerobic versus aerobic. So anaerobic, remember, means without oxygen. Aerobic means with oxygen. Inside of the rumen, it's going to catch that solid food, and as it catches that solid food, the animal is then going to have to regurgitate that food and continue to chew on the food to break it down a little bit further. So if you've ever seen a cow lay down, they'll lay down and they'll wrap their front legs underneath them, and it actually pushes on their rumen and causes that food to come back up and allows for them to chew it and then actually begin that breakdown system as well. The inside of the rumen is filled with papillae. And so papillae are just little nodules that sit on the inside, and that's going to help with that digestive system. And we'll talk about the rumen a little bit more as we move on to further activities. So in the reticulum then, which is the second part, it's going to be lined with kind of honeycomb walls. So if you've ever looked at the inside of a beehive, we see those honeycomb walls there, and that's really what the inside of that looks. And that's a picture of a cow's reticulum. And so you can actually just see the little bit of walls and the texture that's there for them. In the reticulum, it catches the liquid, so the liquid will fall through the rumen and collect into the reticulum, and that's where all of the food that's been chewed and the cud that's been chewed, that'll fall into there, as well as, again, that foreign matter will fall in there as well. The third compartment of a ruminant's stomach is the omasum, And this is where it's going to be actually a strong muscle that's there, and it grinds the food a little bit more. So again, we're continuing to break this down, and we're slowly getting it into a point where the body can start to absorb the actual nutrients from that matter, the food that they've eaten. They'll also then collect water, and it'll absorb some of the water there, which will again happen further on. And then all of that matter moves into the abomasum. And the abomasum is then going to actually be the true stomach. So it's most similar to a monogastric animal. And so again, this is where a lot of that breakdown is going to happen. This is where enzymes will be secreted, and those enzymes will then work to also break down those systems as well. So, as I said, what we've done today is just kind of touch on them, and so we're going to spend a little time just here reviewing what we've talked about, and we'll come back tomorrow then and talk about it a little bit more. So, we talked a little bit about this, but where does digestion occur, and what's the first part of the stomach where digestion begins? Caitlin?
Where does digestion begin?
Where does it begin when we talk about just the stomach? So what's the first compartment? The rumen is where the food's going to enter first. Okay? We'll talk about this a little bit further, and we'll talk about where actual digestion really begins when we talk about this tomorrow and we start talking about some of the other parts of the digestive system. Can anybody tell me what the four compartments of a ruminant's stomach are? Katie?
The rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum.
Excellent. So again, the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, and then the abomasum. And each of them have a distinct part that they're going to follow. And then can somebody provide me an example of a ruminant animal? And we talked about some of these at the very beginning. Rochelle?
Cow.
A cow.
A
Caitlin?
deer.
A deer. Excellent. So again, we'll talk a little bit tomorrow about these in a little bit further detail.